Me, I've been at the university 11 years, so I left just as, came just as you were leaving.
That's right, I've been gone 11 years.
In fact, Dorcas, you don't know this, but the first time I met you, and I know you don't remember this, is the very first, they had for new people, and we sat at your table, and I heard you say, well, my son sent us overseas on the
Concord, yeah.
And I thought, my goodness sakes alive, what a wonderful son! And then you kept talking, and I realized that your son was Dick Cavett, but that's how, the first event we went to at UNL was, I sat by you.
I'll be darned.
Isn't that funny?
Yeah. Well, I was going to celebrate the end of my career. And Al, he never did anything for him, so he took us both.
That was pretty
I
nice.
talked to a couple old friends of yours in the last couple of days, trying to get some ideas, and here's some of the things they said we ought to talk about.
Here.
You want to powder it because it's going to shine.
No, it's just got a hair.
Curls.
Oh, okay. Bob Egbert said we need to ask you about the Nut Cup story and Woody Allen. I don't know what that all about.
Okay.
And Dude Ranch and involvement in the Marines.
Here.
And the one story you told to the people here at the beginning of the year, you had that award ceremony for Mary and you for the elementary teachers, and you told about your pet that you got when you first were teaching, your first year of teaching, and about the elephant.
Oh, the elephant. Yeah.
So-
How could you
So,
forget that?
well, but what I was thinking, I would like to have you tell us a little bit about your decision to get a pet, and it would be sort of fun if we not let people know right away that it's an elephant.
Okay.
See if we can talk a little bit about this
Now,
pet
this
you had
is
to get.
directed to a science class, is that correct?
Well, I'll tell you the purpose in taping this. I spoke to Don McCurdy this morning, and I explained to Don that what I was going to be doing today, and I really, really was regretting not doing something similar with Mary. This award is very special, that is given to the LEDs and that day when we bring in exemplary teachers, and I want to make sure it endures. Don has a letter that's written about Mary that he is getting to me so that we have some history to develop and maintain. Now that Don's retiring, though, my concern is that we must keep history in perspective for the department, for all of us. And so I want to capture this so that there's a motivating factor, for the future generations when all of us...
factor.
It really is. Sort of fun. So, should we are you already rolling? Are you rolling? You're a bad person.
I didn't know that. Okay.
Dorcas, why don't you help us out a little bit? First of all, I'm going to do an official start that I had in mind.
Okay.
We have the rare privilege today of being with Dorcas Cavett, and some of the experiences you've had and your involvement in education over the years is something that I think would be a rare privilege if we could share that with people today. So I would like to have an opportunity to ask you a few questions, and you feel free to share anything that comes to mind as well as we go through a couple of things. But I do want to sort of back up historically for a moment, and if you would share and lay the groundwork a little bit about your life.
Starting with teaching you're talking about, I would
Well,
imagine.
let's go even a little bit back beyond that, yeah.
A long time. Well, I'm pretty much a product of the Lincoln schools. We moved to Lincoln when I was supposed to be in the 3rd grade, but I promoted myself to the 4th grade because I was tired of being the biggest kid in the room. And the principal didn't question me at Hartley, so she put me in the 4th grade. And my father didn't think much of that idea when he found out about it, so he gave me a spanking. I think it was the last time he ever gave me one. Well, I learned that you're not supposed to do things like that. But anyway, I went through the Lincoln schools and Lincoln High and the University of Nebraska. I think that's where I first became very fond of the university, and I have a lifelong devotion and commitment to the university. My husband also is a graduate of the University of Nebraska. And he was an English major, and so was I, curiously enough. But I'd always wanted to teach, not the little kids. I had taken care of enough at home, so I thought I'll take the upper grades and junior high age. Well, I graduated in 1937, and I made 75 applications in person to try and get a job. And about the third week in August, I still did not have a job. So I sat at home and read the obituary. Our teacher had died. I asked my dad if I could go apply for that job, and he said maybe I'd better, so I did. And I did get it.
Where was that?
At Snyder, Nebraska, 70 miles straight north of here. And I taught 6th, 7th, and 8th grades, and was a sponsor of the pep club for $675 a year. I lived in a teacherage, and it was quite an experience. It was a lot of fun, to tell you the truth. We were not allowed to leave town only one weekend a month. But that was all right. We didn't have any. And then the next year, I went out to Mitchell, Nebraska, and taught just the 6th grade. And in those days, they had everything segregated. So my 6th grade was almost entirely Mexican-American and Japanese-American children. And then my father said, in order to get experience, you better get into a big system where they supervise you. And he had in mind that I'd come back to Lincoln, but I didn't want to come home. So I went over to Des Moines, Iowa, a big deal, and I got a job teaching in Des Moines. I taught there 5 years. I always had between 60 and 70 kids in my classroom. In those days, they gave you double class size in order to keep the salary down.
With one teacher?
One teacher, no aides. And I taught in downtown Des Moines. My children were almost entirely black American children, and some Native American kids.
So multicultural was a component. Many of us, I don't think about the Midwest having a multicultural component for many, many years.
Yeah.
That's exciting.
And of course, going through Whittier, as I did, and Lincoln High, I had a background also. And then my father was a teacher. And so we were raised in that type of environment, very open all the time. I think that stood me in good stead all the way.
Well, some people at the university.
We need to fix her blouse again. And Dorcas, why don't you go ahead and talk to Nicolette? Keep your face a little more toward the camera part of the time.
All right, look over this way too.
Yeah, to him, and interacting those two.
Yeah, I want to.
Let's back up for a moment. Your 4th grade experience. How did you get away with sort of promoting yourself into the 4th grade?
Well, the principal was also a big woman, and she was not being on the level, and she kind of laughed. I remember that. Now, what grade were you in last year? And I kind of crossed my fingers and said, maybe the 3rd. She said, well, I'll tell you, if you can keep up with the subtraction, we'll let it go. So I worked hard on that. Got through it.
So you were able to handle the work and decided that you could promote yourself there. In your first job in Des Moines, I've been told that you had somewhat of a surprise when you were working there. That you were asked to, right at the beginning, you were asked to get a pet. That you were supposed to have a pet or something in your school.
Well, Des Moines at that time was one of 3 school systems in the whole country that were on progressive education. Actually, today, I probably am the only person alive who's actually taught progressive education, and I thoroughly believe in it. It's too bad, along with modern math and a few of these other ideas, that they've gone by the wayside.
Tell us a little bit about what it is.
Well, it means that children are actively involved in their learning, and they frown somewhat on just sets of books and workbooks, but get the kids out in the district and out in the countryside and see what's going on. I taught a group of children in the downtown of Des Moines, the capital city of the greatest farm state in the country, and not one child had ever been on a farm. So I took them on a farm, and they had a great time. I took them everywhere on field trips. Those children were very limited in their experiences. Well, this was the essence of progressive education. It's strenuous, and that's part of the reason it went down, and a lot of people, I think, never did tune into it because it was a change. I remember articles in the Des Moines Register were just insane, but modern education in its greatest form. You have to temper it, of course, and use some good common sense. I do think kids have to know basic facts and basic skills, but there's a lot to be said for it. Anyway, we were supposed to encourage children to have all these diversified experiences, and all the primary teachers had all kinds of pets in their classrooms. Well, they didn't so much have, what do you call those little things, gerbils or anything like that at that time, mainly goldfish. And I couldn't see my 66 kids interested in goldfish especially. And then I was changed. The next year, after my first year there, I was changed out to the edge of Des Moines, right across the street from the state fairgrounds. I still had essentially the same type of children. Many of them did live on acreages around there. And the Iowa State Fair was always the last week in August. So the teachers had to be on duty. And I happened to read in the paper that a man who was showing a pet at the Iowa Fair wanted to sell it because it was sickly for $20. And I thought, I don't know where I can get $20.
You were only making about $600 or $700 right then.
No, about then I was making about $1,200.
Oh, okay, good.
And so I thought, well, I'll go talk to him and see if I could work this out. So I went over, and he assured me that if I bought that animal, why, I could keep it there, providing my children took good care of it. And we could keep it there all winter. The first day of school came, and I told the boys and girls that I had a little surprise for them. Would you like to walk down the street and get acquainted with our new class pet? Sure, they couldn't imagine why you'd have to walk, but we went down and we got acquainted with our baby elephant. We named him Jumbo, of course.
So you had a class pet that was an elephant?
We had an elephant. That man said that he couldn't move Jumbo because he was so sickly that he probably wouldn't make it. Well, these kids took this to heart, and you never saw any pet get so much loving attention and devotion. The kids brought in all kinds of hay. All their families got involved in it. They'd come in and take care of him on the weekends. I had to go over every weekend, too, and check on him. And we had big committees. Feeding committee, cleanup committee, that was their least favorite. And hugging committee, we had all kinds of committees.
Get everybody involved.
Everybody was involved, and everything that we studied was related to elephants. We got in an enormous amount of geography and history and literature, and of course Kipling's was our favorite story. And they wrote all kinds of letters, and we just had a lot of fun. Really, it was the way I've always thought education should be.
Sort of a thematic approach, huh?
It really was.
Tying it all together. If you have an elephant in your classroom, it's hard to not teach elephants.
It's hard not to get off the subject. And then the next year, this man came back, and we showed him what had happened to his elephant, and he wanted to buy him back, and so we sold him. And as I remember, we sold it for a profit, and we put the money into war bonds. So that's our story.
Speaking of the war, were you involved in the military in any capacity?
Everybody in Lincoln knows this. Well, after teaching all those kids in Des Moines, I thought the WACs were stationed there, the women in the Army, and I thought they were doing a great job, and I had a personal loss. So I thought, I believe I'll join the Waves. After all, I'm a native Nebraskan, and I love water. So I went down.
You have equal access to both oceans.
Yeah. So I went down to join, and I took all my tests for the Waves, but they couldn't swear me in until the next day or two, I forgot. And they told me to come to the 4th floor of the old federal building and they'd swear me in. Well, I went down. I had to ride my bike. In those days, you either rode a streetcar or a bike. You didn't afford a car. And I ran up 4 flights of stairs, and every time I did this for 4 nights in a row, and they'd always shut the door just before I got there. So I went tromping down those wooden stairs, and the 5th night on Friday, I was really fueled up by this time, and I got down to the bottom, and this Marine Marine sergeant was standing at the bottom, and he said, "What are you doing? I've seen you come in here every night and tear up these stairs and back down." And I told him I was trying to get into the waves, but I could never get here in time because I came clear in from the outer edges of Des Moines on my bike. He said, "Why don't you join a good outfit, the Marine Corps?" I said, "Well, I would like to. My brother's a Marine, but they don't take women." He said, "They're going to start tomorrow. Come on in and I'll swear you in." And he did, and I was the first woman to
So you've been sort of a high risk taker and a person that tries new things all along, huh?
I guess so.
I've been told that you also had some experiences on ranches at some point in time. What was that all about?
Well, in order to subsidize your mediocre salaries, you have to live. And I'm the oldest one. Wasn't about to go home. They needed that money for the rest of the kids. So I think the first year after I taught school, I got a job teaching swimming at a girls' camp in Vermont. I had learned to swim in the municipal pool here in Lincoln and passed my life saving. I saw the advertisement for it in a magazine when I was in the dentist office. And so I took a bus back there to Vermont and ended up teaching swimming to several hundred girls who'd spent the whole winter at private schools in Switzerland and France. It's quite a change from Snyder and Mitchell, Nebraska. And then the next year, I went to, I got a job on the Klondike Ranch in the Bighorns in Wyoming. I was hired to be the nurse, the nanny, I guess they call it now, for all of Dude's children who went to this ranch. But the night after I got there, the ranch burned down.
So you're out of job, huh?
So they said, if you want to stay here, you can. We'll put you to work, but you'll have to do just whatever needs to be done until we get it built up again. And we figure it'll take us about 6 to 8 weeks. And then we'll go back, and if we have a whole list of people who are coming. So you just have your original job. I thought that was all right. I still needed a job. So I did everything. One day that one of the men who came out ahead, he said he didn't care if the ranch was in a state of collapse. He needed a private cabin to work in, and it was William L. Shire. He was doing the final drafting of the NETV. And since I was a school teacher, he asked me if I would go over Berlin Diary and check it out for him. So I actually got to read it in its original form. It's kind of unusual.
Wonderful experience.
And then the next year, I went to the Jackson, Wyoming, with a girl I met at the Klondike. She was a nurse in Dubuque, and we bought a Ford for $250, and we drove to Jackson. In those days, Jackson was not like it is today. It was really a western town. We went into the cowboy bar to see if he could tell us of any available job, and he said that the SR Ranch, 40 miles straight west, needed all kinds of help. So he called the foreman. The foreman met us halfway and hired both of us. And we worked out there all summer. We did everything. We made beds, picked strawberries, and picked onions, and we just did everything. It was a small kingdom. It was owned by a man named Stanley Reeser. He was an advertising executive in New York. And all kinds of famous people came out there and landed. He had his own airport. And then 20-some years later, I was at my son's graduation from Yale, and this man and his wife came in and sat down and introduced himself, and that was my former boss. I hadn't seen him all the time I worked on the ranch. I was too busy.
How did you end up getting involved with the university again?
Well, I got married finally. I came home. I was after the Marines. I worked for Scott Forsman as a reading consultant in Michigan. I didn't know anybody in the state of Michigan. So and I went in and did demonstration teaching almost entirely, which is really my love and my field. I tore straight around. but I love reading. And I came home after I'd worked there almost a year for a holiday, and the man next door was a new widower, had a little boy. He later told all our friends he wouldn't go across the street to get another wife, but he would go next door. So that sounds just like A.B. if anybody knows him. So we got married in December, and I needed to get my master's. I could still get it on the GI Bill. So I went to the university again here and got my master's. And I applied for a job at Prescott School because we only lived a block away. I got the job, and I taught at Prescott for 5 years. And I taught at Bancroft on the campus for 16 years. I had a mixed 5th and 6th grade. And I just loved that. Loved both experiences. And I love classroom teaching. And I think if anybody wants to do anything else and they don't like classroom teaching, then they don't really belong in teaching, because that's where the action is, as you folks know. And then one day I was told to go over to the temple to try out for teaching math on television, and I told them no, I would not do it. Math really was not my favorite subject, and I was not a TV star. That was my stepson by then. And then I was told that I really wasn't being asked, I was being ordered. Oh, yes, okay, I went. And I ended up teaching 7 years over there. They asked me what I teach, and I said, well, modern math. What do you know about it? I don't know anything about it. But it doesn't make sense to me that you would teach old-fashioned math on TV. This was the new thing, you know. Well, yeah, I think I could learn it. Yeah, I thought I could. So I studied furiously. They thought since all I had to do was teach 3rd, 4th, 5th, and 6th grade to all the kids in Nebraska, and in service to all the teachers, that would be only a part-time job.
But you already handled 60, 70 in a classroom, so that makes sense.
I was on leave from the Lincoln schools. I got my Lincoln school salary, and my husband was teaching classes of 200 to 250 at Lincoln High in English on TV. He was the receptive teacher. And Dick was teaching on ABC, so we all were on at the same time. And we had, they told me since that was only a part-time job, I would have to teach 1 or 2 classes at the university. My rank would be assistant instructor. That's okay. So that's what I did. And they had me teach 1 section of reading and 1 section of math. That was okay. Except I felt much more at ease with the reading by then. But I studied furiously, got really sold and involved in math, on modern math, and I think for the same reason I like progressive education. It's a lot of hands-on. I'm slightly amused at the alleged modern approach in 1995 to handling lots of equipment, because that's what we were doing. It sounds like an old timer, but it's true. I believe in lots of that. That is obvious. The only way to teach for kids to learn is to handle things. And that's how I got into nut cups. I was standing on in the
I've heard this story.
go through it.
I think we better.
Hold on just a second. You gotta get a drink, Dorcas.
You want to get a drink?
Okay, I'm always fooling around.
You're just
Taking
giving
it
me
up
your
higher
stories.
and higher.
Now, she told me to walk around like that, Ron. She told me to do that. I didn't
Well, yeah,
do
but
I
it.
you
just
didn't-
said, I just wanted you on this side.
Didn't have to become
I
a
went-
porpoise
Well,
show.
I didn't know what to do to get around here. You two, I didn't stop.
Doing fine.
I got enough arthritis in my legs. It was hard to
Well, you're
do.
getting older too, aren't you?
Am I doing okay on
You're
pacing?
doing great, yeah, just go ahead and talk to Nicolette once in a while, because that'll get your face a little more
Okay.
full on the camera.
Where we leave off?
We're going to talk about
The
some
nut
nut cups.
That's okay. Well, it soon became obvious from when I was reading about modern math that I needed objects. And I couldn't think, I tried eggs. Any nitwit would know that wouldn't work. But I tried it. And I tried all kinds of things. Plastic was invented just in time. But I was fooling around in a dime store here one night, trying to figure out what they had that I might use in the way of manipulative material. And I don't know how I happened to pick up this package of nut cups and sort of played around with them, and I realized, well, it's got quite a few advantages. First of all, they came in all colors. Secondly, they're lightweight, and they're unbreakable if you drop them. They make no noise, they don't break. But their great quality is that they're stackable. You turn them upside down and you can stack them in any arrangement you want. I've used nut cups for all the time I taught on TV, and they were just the greatest device. They weren't too big or too small, they were just the right size. They're the right size for children to handle. They loved them. And I had a phone call one time when I just got off the air that a man from a nut company in New Jersey wanted to take me to lunch. So I went, and he wanted to know why in the world he sold more nut cups in Nebraska than all of these states put together. I understood that the North Platte schools one time spent over $16,000 in 1 year for nut cups. So you can see it was kind of a widespread object for a long time. And I'll be honest, I've been in a few classrooms in the last year where I still saw nut cups being used.
Well, it really works well. It fits all the
requirements.
needs, all the requirements.
So I've had a lot of fun about it. They call me Dorcas Cavett.
Your creativity in terms of accomplishing a task is sort of notorious in a way. You really have been able to accomplish things with minimal equipment and money. One that I had heard from Nicolette at one point was even how you taught Dick how to play piano. You apparently didn't have a piano.
Right.
That doesn't ring a bell.
Someone told me that, and I didn't know if that was. We'll cross that out.
Okay.
Well, it doesn't ring a bell. That honestly doesn't have a thing to do with it.
All right.
And that was secondhand.
Here's some little things I have. All right. I do have something we really do need to do, though. With all these years of experience and all of these activities, we continue, of course, to try at the university to do our best in preparing teachers.
I know you do.
And what advice would you give us and new teachers as well?
That's a large order. Because any of it's going to sound pompous, and I don't want to. Well, I went to the university at their invitation after I finished TV. I still had a job in Lincoln. I'm going to answer your question.
No, that's great. We got to put the context here.
And they told me that I could start there as an instructor. Otherwise, I'd have to go back to the Lincoln schools. Well, I took great offense at that comment. I said, that's where I belong. I love classroom teaching. And I don't care whether I go back to the Lincoln schools or not. And right now, it sounds better to me than going to the university. Well, then they pointed out the sort of thing you just mentioned, that you do have a larger group of people to work with, not children, young people, who are potential teachers, and perhaps some of my background would be of value to them. So I finally did decide to go that route. But it was with some misgiving, and if I had to go back in the classroom today, I would. I know that things have changed, and everybody tells me how much harder they are, but that's always been the story. I remember my grandmother told me how rough it was in her days. It doesn't worry me. I think that really, this sounds very autocratic. As much as I believe in progressive education and modern types of things, there definitely has to be somebody in charge of the classroom. I do not believe in chaos. I think that, for me, you teach and you encourage and you guide, but it's not one or the other. It has to be a combination. There's a place for good, clear, direct teaching, no matter what the subject matter is. And if you have to go over it several times, so be it. I think there's a place for meaningful drill so that children really acquire these skills. And without them, they cannot function and operate thoroughly. And they need it for any subject. And then I don't see why we can't have fun while we're at it and enjoy it. And most of all, I think a teacher has to exude that feeling of school is really fun, and learning is fun, and even studying is fun. That's the thing that I think perhaps isn't emphasized enough with children, how great it can be. And while we're at it, let's make our classroom as attractive as possible so that children want to come, feel very much beloved and secure, hate to go home. I always thought that was the nicest thing a child could say to me, I hate to go home. And I think that we all do it in so many ways. I think your students are exposed to beautiful classrooms all over this city and all over Nebraska. I've been in almost every classroom in Nebraska. I think I actually have. And so we see many, many wonderful classrooms. My emphasis has always been on trying to make it look cozy. I found so many children come from unhappy situations from time to time, and they need that feeling of good welfare, good, what I call cozy. I like to have little lamps around. One time my children built a artificial fireplace, with paper and an electric switch, red paper, and put an old wooden bench in front of it for Christmas. But they liked it so well, we kept it there all year. And they liked to go and sit in front of the fire all year long. It gave them a nice feeling. And I think that I put it this way, I don't think a good teacher can teach a child who comes to school hungry, tired, or unhappy. You have an overwhelming job then. And some of our people who are so blithe in their columns in the newspaper and so on, who obviously haven't put very much time in a classroom, just pass things like that aside. But that's the absolute core of it. Until our children, when they come into our classroom, feel like they're wanted. That's why I think every morning, without fail, a teacher greets all the kids as they come in by name, makes them feel very special. It cuts down on discipline immediately. Kids only act up because they're trying to get your attention. And when they realize that you fixed up your room so that they can go and sit down, talk to each other, talk to you, and kind of get what's bothering them off their heart and off their chest. And when they know that you're going to help them, and at no time, ever are we sarcastic. I think that's the worst offense that a teacher can make. If I were a principal, I'd fire a teacher immediately if I heard her be sarcastic. That's no place. We have no place for that. Children aren't there to be treated like that. And so once they realize that you're really going to help them and you're not going to make fun of them, that you're going to encourage them, and at the same time that they can have a good time, I think school works no matter what year. Is that okay?
Yeah, thank
That's
you.
your emotional thought.
You have passion about it, that's good.
And we need that as a teacher too, don't we? This is a little bit of a different kind of job than many people have in life. It's a very special job. And you're a very special teacher.
I don't know about that, but that's right.
I think that your wisdom that you've shared with us, and certainly your stories, will stick with us for a long, long time. And I really appreciate your willingness to share with a larger group and an audience today.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
Is there anything that she wanted to talk
Yeah,
about?
now we can add some other things too.
Who wanted to talk about?
Yeah, maybe Dorcas has some things she really wanted to add today that we haven't
We
talked
didn't
about.
talk about.
Because this is going to be all spliced together anyway. So.
Okay.
That was great, Dorcas. You
Oh,
did. Oh, you just have
Yeah,
such a way.
I
You know, the
wanted to
thing,
close it right there because I thought maybe she'd like a drink
Yeah.
and a break.
Yeah, that's
I
great.
didn't, but I
You
always
know
feel
what,
emotional.
I wondered it, well, I think that's what I think. See, this person has such a wonder, and I said that the other day to her, I wish Mike could give this to my daughter, that you just have a zest for life, and somehow, you know, what a teacher, I know it's personality, and I think about all those kids I had at UNL that are going to be teachers, and I think, you know, but we, somehow if we could share with them, you have to have passion. You have to want to not get paid very much, and I have kids that sometimes smell so bad you can't get close to them. I mean, in the inner city school I taught, I used to gay near a little boy, Jesse. I felt so bad. I actually would, anyway. But see here, I tear about too. But you know, somehow can you? Is that something that would about what kind of person it takes to be a teacher that's a teacher of excellence like Dorcas is?
Well, I even had wondered about if you could share why you became a teacher.
Yes, that was easy. I'm the oldest of 6, 3 boys and 3 girls. By the way, I lost my brother last week.
Oh, I'm sorry.
He was my middle brother. He made 7 landings in the Pacific in the Marines in World War II.
Oh my! Did he?
Cancer got him.
Oh.
But that's all, not for publication. But yes, as the oldest, I think you do sort of. My father traveled. He worked for Scout Forestman, and my mother needed help, so naturally you help. And I guess I always liked kids. I think that has to go with it. And if a teacher or a person says to me, I don't like kids very much, or how do you learn to like kids? For Pete's sakes, run, don't walk, get out of the profession. And when I went through Lincoln High, I decided, well, it wasn't too glamorous to be a teacher. I think I'll be a newspaper reporter. I knew nothing about it. My instincts weren't that way, but it just sounded more glamorous. And my friends were all going to be movie stars, so at least that wasn't quite that bad. Well, I thought, my dad brought me up in the real world very quickly one night. He said, now, Dorcas, you're going to go to the university. Yeah, that's fine. And you're going to become a teacher. No, I'm not. Well, I'll put it to you this way. I'll help you through college if you become a teacher, otherwise forget it. Oh, I guess I'll be a teacher.
So that's how you really got involved in this, huh? But some of the components that you exhibit about concerning teaching are very, very special. I can't imagine being a child in your class and not being involved because it's contagious. Your love of life is contagious. Is that important, though, for a teacher to be alive?
I think so.
To show that kind of love and devotion.
Yeah.
Pull your pants down.
I do that all the time. My husband, was a teacher, too, at Lincoln High and Grand Island. He was at Lincoln High for 32 years. And in all that time, I never once saw him come home from school and complain about teaching. He never, ever discussed a discipline problem. He was not a big man, and he loved to teach. He was an honest-to-goodness intellectual, and he did not display that aspect so much. He had enormous wit, and I think that came off in his classroom. It did, because every time we go any place, students came up and told me what he said and did. And we just happened to match very well together. We had lots of fun about teaching. That was probably the greatest part of our whole marriage was this common bond. And I think that he displayed the same things. People told me that, and when he died last year, I couldn't believe the overwhelming letters that I got in cards and the stories that they told me about Al. And they were sort of the kind of thing I've told you about myself. We were just both really into where we belonged. And I think if people get into do what they really like to do, they're happy.
That everything else falls in place.
It does. And if you don't, then hurry up and find out where you do belong, because
your work with students, you've had a lot of students over the years.
Yeah, quite a few. Every place I go.
Do you run into the students from time to time?
I went to the doctor's office this morning, and I taught the doctor. And he's his wife happened to show up and I taught her. So, yeah, I run into it like half a dozen times a week at least.
That's quite a legacy to leave, though, isn't it, as a profession?
It is. Yes, it is.
People.
I think, I really do think, with all due respect to the ministry and to medicine and to carpentry and all these other great professions and jobs, that the number one is teaching. I really believe that. Nothing is really more touched and analyzed and influenced than teaching. It's amazing. So it does behoove you to develop your own character and your own personality in order to transmit that. And if you're afraid or disinterested in the world, I would hope that you start out very young in life reading the newspaper as well as watching TV, and reading a lot, wide reading.
Sort of a Renaissance person, so that you're not really all that focused. Is that what you're
That's
implying?
Right. Music.
Interesting.
You have to have a profound interest in music. You ask any child in school, what's your favorite subject after recess? They'll say music and art. Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. And they're right. That's why I'm
not math or science, huh?
No.
Well, we'll work on
We'll work
that.
on that. But, no, I'm a strong believer in the arts, definitely.
What would you say to a teacher, a midlife teacher? I see a lot of teachers at some point lose their zest for teaching. Something starts to falter. Any advice for these people?
I've had a lot of them. They call me up at night, come visit with me, and it kind of depends on their own personal life. You have to sort of get your own house in order to transmit this. I always felt basically, as a person, very happy. I've had sad things happen, so does everybody. But basically, you're very happy. That's based perhaps on your religious ideas. I think it is with me. But I don't go around preaching it to anybody else. That's just my own belief. I don't want people to preach that to me. And I try to find the things that are, I'm not even conscious of it, but I think that you build up this inner reserve, inner reservoir. So many people have said to me, since I've been a widow now for 15 months, how do you stand it? How do you stay alone? Well, I'm alone, but I'm not lonely. I'm so busy, and I've got all kinds of interests, and that's probably the biggest thing. And widespread circles of friends. You can never have too many friends. Friends and neighbors and relations and everything.
But it is important then for a teacher, whether they're beginning or in midlife, to have their own act together.
Absolutely.
You can't have children teaching children, so we really need to spend the time necessary to, as you said, keep our own house in order.
And if you spend your time going to coffees and griping about teaching and griping about kids and griping about the teaching profession, by the time you're 50, you're shot, and you deserve it. I think that I have nothing against coffee rooms. I enjoy sociability.
Faculty lounges may not be the best places, what you're implying?
I am, but if they do that,
Yeah.
and I've seen plenty of it, and I know you have. If you go in there and start in about, that's why I mentioned about my husband. I never heard him do that in all those years of marriage, never. And I just think you're self-defeating. You don't have to be in that state. They say, oh, that's easy for you to talk. Yeah, I taught 48 years. I can talk.
Mm-hmm. So it can be done.
Yeah, it can be
You can
done.
be a positive person.
You're darn right. Speaking of the power of positive thinking, I told this, I'll tell this part to you. When I taught in the big city of Mitchell, Nebraska, there was not a lot to do. I loved that town. That was fun. But I didn't make very much money, and so on the book, The Power of Positive Thinking, I think that came out then, but at least it was one of Norman Vincent Peale's books, and I think that was the one. And I couldn't afford to buy it. As I recall, it cost $3.95. in those days. So I went down to the city library and every Saturday afternoon for several weeks, and I copied passages out of that book because I thought it
By
gave-
hand?
By hand, sure. I taught for years before we even had a ditto machine. I should get into that. And we had, I copied by hand. I've got a drawer full upstairs of stuff that I have copied like that, not to use with anybody else, for my own personal build-up. My own, it gives me lots of strength and courage. And I got so much out of that particular material I was copying. And then, I don't know, it must have been at least 40 years later, I was sent by the university to Charleston, South Carolina for a weekend to help some teachers there with their science and math program. And I stayed at a motel, and I went one night and asked the clerk where I could get some good fish to eat. She told me, and I took a cab and went there. I was seated in this dining room and looked across and saw this man whom I thought was Norman Vincent Peale. I'd never seen him, of course. So I kind of smiled, and then I waved. He got up and came over and invited me to join him and his wife for dinner. And I probably never spent a more rewarding evening.
Tell what he said to you, that he was so touched by
Oh,
you.
yes. Well, I decided to tell him after I got there that I had spent many Saturday afternoons copying his material in Mitchell, Nebraska, and he started to cry. And he said that he'd gotten thousands of plaques and awards in his life, but nothing had touched him that much.
Isn't that neat? Isn't that neat?
That is a common theme that reigns through all of us in making a difference in people's lives. And certainly teaching is giving you an opportunity to do that. And it can do that for a lot of other people too.
Well, when you're 6 feet under, you don't want to look back and think that you had made something.
Made a difference.
Mm.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
This is so great. Oh, Dorcas, you could just do this. Just
You know?
oh, no wonder you were.
every week.
I know.
But Shirley, do you see why we needed to do this?
I mean, there's so many
Great.
stories that you didn't even tell, but it didn't relate to teaching. But oh, this was so. Gosh, I hope this was fun for you rather than work. Was it kind of fun?
No, it was fun.
Okay.
Yeah, talk about yourself, you know. I have to be real careful because